Hello everyone, and yes, your eyes do not deceive you. That's a kit beer, and I'm going to do a review for it. So this is the Muntons flagship Hazy IPA Kit. Let's see what it's like. So if you followed the channel for a while, you'll probably be wondering why I'm doing a kit beer, because I basically never have done any kit beer brewing on this channel. I pretty much moved to all grain before I started doing the videos for this, and I haven't gone near extract brewing or extract kit brewing since, mainly because when I swapped over from kits to all grain, the difference in quality for me in terms of the outcome, but also the enjoyment of the process, was quite a bit different. That said, there were a lot of really good kits still around at that point, but we're talking probably 7-8 years ago now, maybe, that I last brewed a kit. So the reason I'm doing this video, partly because Muntons sent me the kit for free, obviously. So thanks very much to Muntons for that. But also I had it in mind to do a video like this anyway, to basically see where kind of kit beers are at this point, and if they've moved on in terms of the quality of them, in my opinion, from where they were when I last brewed with them. Anyway, we'll open it up and have a look at it. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was obviously some of the things that you can do in terms of brewing a kit beer, which will hopefully give it a better chance of success. And obviously the experience that I've had doing lots of all grain brewing should hopefully give me the knowledge, but also a lot of the tools in order to do that well. Fingers crossed, we'll see. So yeah, let's have a look inside and see what we've got. So the grand unboxing. We've got 2 cans of malt extract. So when I was last brewing kits, if it was all extract, i.e. a 2-can kit, that was usually a mark of quality. We've got, is this instructions? Or is it just a poster? No, we've got some instructions here. So those look pretty detailed. Nice pictures on there as well to make it clearer. Now we're getting into the good stuff. So we've got some hop pellets. As I said, some of the kits that I was brewing with before I went all grain did have like hop pellets and stuff like that already. But there's quite a lot in here. So this is, we've got Citra and Mosaic. We've got multiple packets of those. So potentially, I haven't looked at the instructions yet, but potentially is there a double dry hop? And we've also got, which I think is a really good thing, a proper branded Safale yeast, in this case SO4, to brew it with, and a full 11.5 grams of that as well. So a lot of kits previously used to have like half of that, so about 6 gram packets. And it's been a long time since I've used one of these, but the little filter bag to go over the siphon tube. Now I won't be using a siphon tube, but I must say, actually, these little bags, when I was siphoning beers out, this was probably one of the most useful little bits of kit I ever got out of a beer kit for free. As you can tie that onto the end of the siphon tube to help filter out the hops. But anyway, I digress. I won't be using it, but that's good to have that in the kit if you are siphoning. So that's everything out of the box. Okay, so let's have a quick look at these instructions, because there is some interesting stuff in here, and it is very specific to this kit, which is good. So the usual stuff, first of all, in terms of obviously heating up the malt extract to make it easier to get out the can. One thing to note here, it does say that the 2 extracts are different, so presumably one of them is like a standard extract tin, and the other one is maybe like the hopped extract specific to this kit, perhaps. I don't know exactly, but I would guess that. So yeah, top it up with cool water once you've added boiled water to dissolve it, etc, etc. Check your gravity, pitch your yeast. Same process as you would get with any beer kit, essentially. Then it gets a bit more interesting. As I suspected, the multiple packets of hops are because we are doing a double dry hop with this kit. So after 1 day, it says to go to stage 2, which is basically adding your first dry hop. Now, this is going to be aimed at creating presumably biotransformation with those hops, which is the yeast interacting with the dry hop to create more kind of fruity flavors from it. So you do your initial dry hop, then you leave it to ferment, and it's saying to leave it for 10 days here. You could potentially shorten that down if you think that it's done and you're checking the gravity and so on. And then after that, stage 3, you're going to add the remaining hop pellets and make sure that the gravity is below 10, 14 and stable for 48 hours before you move on to the next step. So stage 4 is basically here suggesting sort of siphoning and bottling. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on, but obviously I'm not going to be bottling. I'm going to be using a keg, and you would potentially find this easier if you actually do a cold crash before stage 4 as well. So if you have the option to do that, which I do because I've got a fermentation fridge, that would be a good thing maybe to suggest in the instructions. Obviously I know most people maybe wouldn't be set up for that if they're brewing kit beers, but something that they could add in there just as an option perhaps. But otherwise the instructions are, you know, pretty clear. The amount of time that it's giving is a bit more realistic compared to a lot of the instructions on beer kits that I looked at in the past, so that's good. Probably less likely to end up with under attenuated or unfinished beer going into the bottles that way. And it's really interesting to see a kit that's actually using a double dry hop and potentially, you know, biotransformation processes going on here. So let's brew it. So here we have the finished product in the glass. Just before I get into the tasting and evaluation of this beer, a couple of points to mention about the brewing process itself. So obviously it was a lot quicker and easier than my usual all grain process because it was a kit beer. So there's certainly some time saving advantages to be had in that sense. The final ABV came out on this about 4.3%. So one thing I would say is I think that the 5% approximate value that's given on the box is maybe a little bit optimistic based on what I believe to be the maximum potential gravity for the amount of liquid extract that's in the kit. So maybe 4 to 4.5% might be a little bit more realistic. Happy to be corrected on that if anyone else got different results. And the fresh ingredients that were in the box, so the hops, actually smelled really good out of the packet. So even though it had been sat in my garage for a little while, and I don't know how fresh they are when they were packaged up for the kit, but they smelled really good. Good quality ingredients there in terms of the hop pellets as well. And the yeast packet I mentioned before, so the SO4, because it was full size pack, got a really quick fermentation, started off with that, and it finished out pretty quick and looked like a pretty healthy ferment all the way through. So that side of things all went well. Quite impressed with the quality of all the ingredients there and how well the kit sort of fermented and finished out. But let's talk about the beer itself, which is the important thing. So appearance in the glass, pretty good, holding a nice little fluffy white head on the top there. Colour is sort of light orangey, almost marmalade-y colour to it, but it's definitely got the haze, so it certainly ticks the hazy box there. It's maybe a little bit more orange rather than the kind of pale colour that you see with some beers in this style, but it's certainly not to the point where it's looking, I guess I wouldn't say it was amber or anything. It's more sort of light orange straw kind of colour. Anyway, on the aroma, we can definitely tell that there's Citra and Mosaic in there. It's got that classic sort of mango-y, tropical papaya thing that a lot of people will be familiar with, because Citra and Mosaic as a combo is so prevalent in craft beers anyway. There is a hint of a slight caramel note to it, which I do associate with kit beers in terms of the liquid malt extract. And the aroma's not like blow your head off pungent, because although it is double dry hopped, there's not a huge quantity of hops going into this, certainly compared to what you might see in other kind of craft beers and things like that. But it's enough for it to smell good, and it's quite appealing, I've got to say. It smells decent, so let's go in for a taste. Now, flavour wise, again, you're getting a lot of the classic sort of Citra and Mosaic flavours there, so mango-y, kind of tropical, papaya. There's a little bit of a sort of melony flavour to this as well, so I'm definitely getting a kind of watermelon flavour. It makes me think a little bit of like watermelon sweets, so there is again like a sort of slight candy kind of flavour to this. Jolly Ranchers, I'm thinking like watermelon Jolly Ranchers for some reason, but yeah, it's definitely got that sort of juicy tropical fruit mango thing. To be honest, it's good. I'm quite impressed, I've got to say. It's very good for a kit beer. Can I still tell it's a kit beer? I think there is a certain flavour there. Now, I don't want to say the words kit twang, because I don't think it is a twang, but there's definitely there's something there in terms of the, again, I think I'm gonna come back to that sort of like slight caramelly thing that I picked up on the aroma. There's a slight caramelly thing in terms of the flavour, which I think reminds me of kit beers that I've done in the past and those that I've tried from other people. So I wouldn't say, I think some people would probably struggle to tell the difference between this and an all grain beer, but I think a lot of people who are experienced all grain brewers would still recognise this as a kit beer. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just saying there is obviously still probably a difference in terms of flavour and the final outcome that you're going to get between the two. So I'm impressed with this as far as the quality that you would get for a kit beer, especially compared to my previous experiences. It's not something that is going to make me suddenly bin off doing all grain brewing, but let's put it in context. I think if you are an all grain brewer and you need to fill up a few kegs, you want to get some beers turned around really quickly, or you just don't have the time to do some all grain brewing, to me it seems like if the other kit beers in this range are at this sort of quality, then it's a viable option for something that's going to save you a bit of time and get some beer into your bottles or keg a bit quicker and get you drinking perfectly decent beers. So yeah, it's not going to be beating all grain beers that I make of a similar style at this point, but it's definitely exceeded my expectations in terms of what I would perceive to be the standard that's achievable with extract kit beers. So if you're new to brewing and you're thinking of doing an extract kit, I could definitely recommend this one as a starting point. And like I said, if you're an all grain brewer and you're struggling to find the time to get an all grain brew in, or you just want to, fill a few kegs or bottles up quickly, definitely a good option. Let me know, anyone else out there who's been brewing kit beers recently, tell me what your experiences are. Do you think the standard has gone up? I think the standard of this kit is certainly a lot better than the ones that I vaguely remember from when I last brewed them, but just in terms of the ingredients included and the instructions, all the rest of it, it definitely looks like a step up to me. So yeah, get in the comments, tell me what you think, if you've been dabbling with kit beers, if you're an all grain brewer, or if you're on the flip side, if you're doing kits and you're moving over to all grain. What do you think? Where do you think we're at in terms of the difference between the two at this point? Like I said, I'll still be brewing all grain most of the time, but well done Muntons for putting together kits of this standard, and thank you for sending this to review. So cheers guys.
I'm the dude. So that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or Duder or, you know, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.